You know, I'm very happy that I was able to arrive while you were praying. I already phoned the Bob kanina, the other Bob, no? The, that I may be late because there's such a heavy traffic on our way here, no? The talagang we made so many detours until finally we were able to find a way out near our own home there in Sampaloc, and from there we were able to go to Lacson Avenue and finally arrive here. As they say in Tagalog, humahangos. Pero eto pa rin, salamat at nandito na kami. So let us kindly stand up and let me read to you from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians. I start from verse 1 of chapter 4, letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians. I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, beg you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all lowliness and meekness, with patience, forbearing one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore it is said, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives, and he gave gifts to men. In saying he ascended, what does it mean but that he had descended into the lower parts of the earth? He who descended is he who also ascended far above all the heavens, that he might fill all things. And his gifts were that some should be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the one faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. The word of the Lord. Good morning to all of you. Yesterday, while we were waiting for the start of the Mass, Father Bart and I were talking here, two senior members of the spiritual directors, and we were exchanging a few notes, and I said, now I said, my sleeping habits have changed. I sleep at night, and then in the morning, at 9 o'clock, I get very sleepy. And I do not get well until in the afternoon. I was consoled to hear from him, Bishop, ganyan din ako. I'm like that. I also get sleepy in the morning and get strong in the afternoon. And so, my prayer really this morning was that I be strong enough and that I not be sleepy while I am talking. Because I do not want what happened to a fellow priest of mine to happen to you here. He's now a Monsignor, but he lives in another country, Filipino. No? He told me one day, Bishop, during the 9 days novena mass before Christmas, I was feeling very sleepy. And when I was giving the sermon, I yawned before the people. Ganoon daw siya. No, mabuti na lang, sabi niya, the people did not yawn with me. So don't get sleepy with me. Promise me that. Okay. Now, our topic is spiritual direction. And I have only one PowerPoint presentation here, which says, spiritual direction is the art of helping persons and groups to discern, discover, and to do the will of God. It is a ministry of service given by Christ and His Spirit to the church. That is what many books will tell you about spiritual direction. Spiritual direction is an art. It is not only a skill. Because you, like good artists, you have to size up the situation, you have to size up the persons and the groups, and then adapt your counseling to them. Adapt whatever help you can give to them. There is no one formula that fits all. You have to learn how to adapt to the situation and how to deliver your help in the way that is most effective for this person and for this group. So, that is what you might read. But actually, when you become spiritual directors of a charismatic community, by the way, if you cannot hear me well, please raise up your hands.
This is better.
If you cannot hear me well, please raise up your hands so that I can speak louder, okay? May I have also a glass of water para lang. That is what you might read. But in actual fact, when you are spiritual director of a charismatic community, you have to do more than that. You have to do more than simply give spiritual direction. So first of all, let me tell you that I'm at present spiritual director of the Federation of Transparochial Charismatic Communities in Manila and in Luzon, and also of the El Shaddai Charismatic Communities, and maybe also, if you know them already, the Soldiers of Christ. I am also their spiritual director. Both of those groups are perhaps the biggest groups in the Philippines today. Then also, I am spiritual director of Familia, which came from Ligaya ng Panginoon. No? And then the Catholics for Family and Life, which separated from the Couples for Christ. And then also, there is another community, Salt and Light for Christ community. Besides that, I try to help Diyos Gugma in Iloilo, which is probably the biggest group of charismatics in the Visayas. Diyos Gugma, but based in Iloilo, under Brother Daulo. Now, when I have been spiritual director for them, I did not only do this, what you see in the blackboard. First of all, here in the Philippines, you had to be a vigilant, as it were, shepherd to the community, especially in the beginning. Let me tell you how in the beginning, of course, the ones who began the charismatic renewal here were in the Protestants, no? Just like in the States. Here, the Ligaya ng Panginoon started the Catholic charismatic groups. 50 years ago, they celebrated 50 years, no? And at that time, Father Herb was given a standing ovation by the members of the Ligaya ng Panginoon community, a recognition of his service to them. But, okay, in the beginning, the Catholics formed their groups, but without any spiritual directors from the Catholic Church. For example, El Shaddai, which celebrated only very recently 41 years. It was started by a layman, an engineer, and a businessman. And he started simply by giving talks on his radio station there in Parañaque, only to discover after 1 year of doing this that many had been listening to him, so that when he invited them all to come and join together in one mass that he wanted to celebrate in Thanksgiving, he was surprised to see how many they were. But he had no spiritual director, no, none. The others also, like soldiers of Christ, they did not have any spiritual director in the beginning. The others they were already very Catholic, no, the others. But the great temptation was this. In the beginning, the non-Catholic groups tried to infiltrate into the Catholic Church. You know that they had a program at one time. The program was to fill the Philippines with evangelicals by, I think, the year 2000. No? They had a program which, fortunately for us, was not able to materialize. What happened in Brazil did not happen in the Philippines. And the Catholic charismatic renewal remained Catholic. But now, look, even when they had spiritual directors. So I was asked to help El Shaddai in the beginning, not because I was asked by Brother Mike, but because Cardinal Sin asked me to help them and to supervise them. And I think he did that very wisely. You know, in the beginning, I started to teach them, no? Because many of the El Shaddai group at that time were not well versed in Catholic teaching, were not church-goers. They were attracted by Brother Mike, but not by the Catholic Church. No? So, as I was giving talks, I did not know until later that there was a group of evangelicals, born again, who were also meeting after my teaching. And you know, their plan was actually to get El Shaddai become Protestant, just like what happened in the biggest Catholic charismatic community in Indonesia, which was taken over by the evangelicals. That did not happen with El Shaddai. When I learned about that, you know what I did? I asked them to take an oath, sumpa, that they will only teach Catholic doctrine no, in their teaching. And after that, Brother Mike stood up in the Coliseum here in Pasay, in our big gathering, and he said, the El Shaddai charismatic community was founded to help the Catholic Church. And it is what's then finally that they withdrew. They withdrew. But there was real danger. It was not imaginary. And that is why the priests who came to me often and said, is El Shaddai Catholic? No? I said, am I Catholic? I celebrate Mass for them. No? I preach to them. No? And so, if I am Catholic, probably they are also Catholic. And little by little, as it were, El Shaddai gained recognition among the priests. Right now, there is no difficulty for El Shaddai members to come to other dioceses and to be able to spread themselves there. But so also, the soldiers of Christ, not that there was a move towards the Protestant churches, but that they were also not educated. So what did we have to do? We had to educate them in the Catholic faith. Otherwise, they would be charismatics, but not Catholic charismatics, so to say. The other groups were Catholic already by, as it were, by descent, because they separated from already existing Catholic communities. Now, so that is one task that was necessary, and I think even now is necessary when we direct our charismatic communities. Be vigilant and watch out, because there can be infiltrators. No, I don't want you to have a, so to say, a complex that becomes wary of everybody, but at the same time, you cannot take it for granted that anybody who enters into your group will always be a loyal member of the Catholic Church. Second, you have to do this also. And I found out I have to do this. You have to authenticate, so to say, no? The charismatic groups, even the already established Catholic charismatic groups. You have to write the bishops and say, this is coming from this group. It is a truly Catholic group. It is loyal to the hierarchy and will help you in your task of evangelization. So, those are tasks which do not fall under that definition of spiritual direction, and yet are necessary if you are a spiritual director. You have to also say to the different bishops, kasama po namin yan sa grupo. Totoo pong member yan nitong community na ito, at ang community na ito ay tunay na Catholic community. Yan po. Tapos, also, there are of course problems of conscience of members, especially when you have a big group of charismatics, and be ready that they come to you. The books may sometimes distinguish between discernment and spiritual moral instruction, but when you are a spiritual director, they come to you. you do not say, that does not belong to my job. No? You have to say, you have to help them. And so therefore, you have to be cognizant of the, as it were, the answers to the different moral problems that people will present to you as members of the charismatic groups which you are directing. No? But let me say this to you finally, you know. Spiritual direction is always a necessity in the church. It is always a necessity in the church. When Bob introduced me, he introduced me as very good in theology. I hope that is true. Every time a student of mine from UST or San Carlos or Loyola comes to me and says, I was your former student, I say, and have you forgiven me? Already? Have you forgiven me? No? But, yeah, I try to give them as best as I can the theology that I knew in the way that I knew how, in a very Filipino way. But, you know, I'll tell you this in all honesty. That is no guarantee that I will know the answer to my own moral questions, and especially to the more difficult ones. No? When I look at the history of the church, for example, Tertullian, 2nd century only, one of the best theologians of the Catholic Church ever, he left the church. He left the church. No? So, it is no guarantee that you know theology, that you know best what to do. More recently, after the Second Vatican Council, there was this famous theologian, Charles Davis, an Englishman, very, very talented and very good at presenting the Catholic faith in understandable language. And then one day he said, I am leaving the Catholic Church because he could not bear what he thought was the dishonesty of the Pope, who said, there is no doubt about the teaching on contraception of the Catholic Church, and yet at the same time he said, you say there is no doubt, and yet you say, let us have a consultation about this. Let us investigate this. How can that be? And so he left the church and then afterwards got married. See, those are very talented people. And yet, when it came to their own problems, the solution that they gave to their own questions were not, as you would say, acceptable to us. No? So, it's necessary, and it's always been necessary. And you know why? Because, first of all, each of us is afflicted with a virus. It was not removed by baptism. Baptism removes the original sin. Okay? It forgives original sin. But it leaves you and I to carry all our lives what is called concupiscence. And that concupiscence is not a sin, but is a tendency to sin. Huh? It is with you all the time. And while there is a very strong force of grace that inclines you towards God, there is also a very strong counter force that came from the sins of our first parents and from our own sins. we add to that concupiscence the tendency to sin by our own personal sins. And so, the more you sin, the greater your tendency to sin. So, in what does the tendency consist? It is not only a weakness of the mind, a blindness of the mind. And each of us must confess that all of us have some blind spots in our minds, especially when it comes to our own moral and spiritual problems. We are not bright enough for that, and that is why we really need the Holy Spirit and the guides that the Holy Spirit give us. Second, not only do we have that, but the world around us helps drive that force. Just coming here on the approach to the bridge of Mabini Bridge, Nagdaan Bridge, I saw a poster, advertisement for a food group. And he said in the poster, think less, crave for more. Okay? Things like that go around you. No? And they project what is commonly achieved to be a truth accepted by this world. And sometimes people buy it. I was surprised one day when a friend of mine from Palawan, whom I knew to be a man, came to me. But I didn't recognize him because he was no longer him. He was her. No? He was her. And I said, nagbago ka na. Opo. Sabi, kasi meron pong paring nagsabi sa akin, don't be ashamed. Ayun, don't be ashamed. No? You are a woman in a man's body. So, magpalit ka na, pare ito. Pare ito. And as you know, there are, in the world today, so many people accept the same-sex marriage. What's wrong with that? One day, an El Shaddai member came to me. She was crying. I said, why? Why are you crying? Because my child has become a born again. No? He has left the church. And he is now living with a fellow girl as his partner. No? And then I said, oh, hindi mo ba tinuruan? Yes, Bishop, tinuruan ko po. I said, hindi pwede yan. Sabi ng Biblia, lalaki at babae ang ginawa ng Diyos. At sila ang magsasama. And then she answered me, sinagot po ako, hindi ba sabi ng Panginoon, magmahalang kayo sa isa't isa? Okay. Magmahalan kayo. Kung gusto sino mong mahalin, okay na. Okay lang yun. At maraming naniniwala sa ganon. Sa mundo, yan ang kumakalat ngayon. Otherwise, how could such a thing as abortion get to be accepted today, even in the most intelligent country in the world like the U.S.? Sometimes you can excuse the Russians and say, well, even though there are many abortions, they do not know any better. But when it comes to the Americans, they should know better. And they are taught. And yet, they prefer to accept what floats around what floats around, what is commonly acceptable to them. If you don't want to believe me, well, you ask the admirers of Vice Ganda. You ask the admirers of Vice Ganda. And you ask, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Okay? So, that's the second one. And then, the third one. There is the devil. The devil is always there. That is why spiritual direction is very important, because sometimes people know and are doing what is good. Yeah, anyway, ano bang mali rito, Bishop? Wala naman. But when you examine it, where is it going towards? That is what is very important. Saan papunta yan? And sabi nga, it is only finally that the devil shows his tail. Sa huli na lang ipinapakita ng demonyo ang kanyang buntot pag nahuli ka na. Pag nahuli ka na. And that is what happens very often. The devil is real. We have been assured by the Catholic Church of that. We have been assured by the popes of that. Even a pope as liberal as Pope Francis tells us that. He says, the devil really exists. And the devil, as you know, is a very intelligent person, more intelligent than you are. And so therefore, we really need help. And when it comes not only to individuals, but to organizations, then that also proves true, and even more true. Because, as you know, if sometimes we say, the monopoly of power is bad. Okay? The power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. No? And yet, of course, the Catholic Charismatic Renewal has had to begin with very, very powerful and very, very attractive founders, like Brother Mike of El Shaddai. Very attractive for people. Very, very difficult for us to understand, no? If I speak, people listen, but they will not necessarily obey. If Brother Mike speaks, they will listen and they will obey. Kahit na sabihin, itaas ninyo ang iyong payong, baligtarin ninyo. And sometimes he uses his wit very, 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 very well and beautifully. Ganun. Sabi niya nung minsan, sino dito ang naniniwala na hindi kayo uuwi ng gutom? Taas. Lahat ng kamay. Sino dito ang mayroong ang walang pagkain? Naku, ang dami rin nagtaas ng kamay. Di, paano yun? Tapos sabi, sino ngayon dito ang may pagkain? Taas din ang kamay. And then he said, kayong may pagkain, bigyan ninyo yung walang pagkain. And so, they divided the chicken with their foodless partner. And then Brother Mike would say, kita nyo na? Totoo. Sabi niya, hindi kayo uuwi ng gutom sapagkat nagsishare kayo. Ganon. Nagagamit naman sa napakaganda. And what is so wonderful about it, you know, we asked Brother Mike not too long ago, Bishop Mercado, Father Sunny Declaro, And I approached him and said, please appoint a successor. Why? I don't know whether you've heard Brother Mike recently. He can hardly speak. He's almost totally speechless. What? Ganon lang. What you can hear are sounds of his breath. No? And then he's able to speak some words. Hallelujah. Thanks be to God. Huh? Ganon. After much practice, a whole day's practice, he's able to speak those. But believe it or not, the El Shaddai is increasing in numbers. Sabi ko, paano ito? Si Father Sunny din, sabi niya, how is this? Sabi ko, you know what is happening? They don't listen anymore to his words. They listen to him. They listen to him. Yun ang sinasabi ni Brother Bob kahapon, no? Na kuminsan, isipin natin, wala nang sinasabi ito. Hindi na kasi makapagsalita. Ito, hindi na makapagsalita, pero may sinasabi pa rin. Sabi nga natin sa Tagalog, may sinasabi pa rin. And to our surprise, I don't know whether you saw on TV or FB, the number of people who attended the 41st anniversary of El Shaddai. So I said, baka naman mali kami. Baka naman siya ang tama. Habang kaya pa niyang at least humarap sa tao, okay pa rin, katulad naman ni John Paul II, hindi ba? Even to his last days, he could hardly say any word. But people wanted to listen to him, not to his words anymore. Which brings me to a point na spiritual directors are not directors in the sense of they participate in governing. They do not. And I know one who participated in governing, si Father, the Jesuit, Father Herb, sino na yung kasama natin? The Jesuit Father, namatay na. Adorable. Father Adorable was a part of the government of his group. And sometimes it leads to very inconvenient circumstances. So, because he included in the constitution of the group, no constitution can be changed unless it is approved by the spiritual director. No? You cannot change. So what happened? There came a time when Father Adorable was changed by a bishop. And they tried to change him. They did not like him. He was very good. No? I'm referring to Bishop Escaler, who was a very good bishop. And so they tried to remove him. I was at that time president of the Federation of Transparochial Communities, and the head of the group that tried to remove him was elected president. So I said, I cannot accept him because he is removing the spiritual director and he is not allowed to do so by their own constitution. No? But they insisted, and unfortunately, Bishop Escaler died no? But that was very sad because, you know, uh, since the spiritual director himself had directed that no change could be done without his consent, then they could not change Archbishop Escaler because he could not consent to his own dismissal, not to the change in the Constitution. So that is why it came to a very grave end, his dying, and unfortunately, that group did not grow anymore. That group did not grow anymore. But as I said, it's better that we stay out of the government. We counsel. Like we came to Brother Mike and we did not say to him, you have to leave now. Bishop Jess, where you have the center at present, is telling you this. Father Sunny, your spiritual director, is telling you this. I, your international spiritual director, advisor, I'm telling you this. No, we could only advise and wait for his decision. But gradually, even though the situation is such, you and I, my dear brothers, and I have started to do this, we have to plant the seeds of what the council recently, in Rome, has been trying to propagate among all Catholics. What is that? The synodality. That people, you and I, at this point, even though we must be resigned to the fact that the first generation, will appoint its successors, that will be the final stage, and that later on, they themselves will learn how to talk among themselves and choose their leaders together. So I make that distinction. We are advisors. We are not governors in any way, sharing in the government of the diocese. And that means also that we do not oblige them. We do not oblige them to give an accounting of their income. Sometimes I've had to introduce to intervene when a bishop asked the soldiers of Christ, you give to me an accounting of your income, what you get. You give to me. And they said, are we obliged to give that to us? And I went to the bishop and said, Bishop, I think we should treat charismatic communities like we treat religious communities. You don't go to a religious community and say, tell me how much your income is. They will say to you, you have no right to inquire about how much we get. If we want to give them to you, to tell you what we get, we will tell you voluntarily. But that is not our obligation to you. I just want to make that clear because, sabi nga ni Pope Francis, the devil enters through our pockets. the devil enters through our pockets, what we can do is actually to remind them of their obligation to always be honest. Sorry. And that is what I tried to do with Brother Mike right in the beginning. And I said, Brother Mike, let me be straight with you. Let us be honest with the income of El Shaddai. No? And let us use the people, the money of the people wisely. And he said, yes, Bishop, you can count on that. And I have defended him on occasion, really defended him for accusations of dishonesty, which were really not proven by anyone, but simply accusations made. And later, we were told that the accuser was a member pala of the Iglesia ni Cristo. That I was not able to verify. Pero ganon. So let us also be clear about that. That our obligation is to help them find the way. And the most important moment when we can find the way in this is when they make a program for the year. That is where I think we spiritual directors should make an input so that we can make sure that the goals of CHARIS are also accomplished by the communities which we are giving spiritual director to. What do I mean? That they are willing also to spread the baptism in the Spirit to all. And by the way, please let us explain that well to them, that the baptism in the Spirit is not always accompanied by the gift of tongues. No? Sometimes I have heard the wrong teaching that the gift of tongues is the doorway to all the gifts. Sabi ko, where did they get that? That everybody should have the gift of tongues if they receive the Holy Spirit. Where did they get that? St. Paul says explicitly that the gift of tongues is not for everybody. Not for everybody. You can have the baptism in the Spirit without the gift of tongues. What is necessary is for you to come to a realization, yes, I am a child of God. Wow, I am a child of God. And then to come to the realization, wow, I have been blessed. I am a son of God. I must spread this to others and also invite them to become children of God. That is what baptism in the Spirit is. That is what you find in 1 John chapter 3, when St. John says, Beloved, see what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are. Beloved, we are already the children of God, but it has not yet appeared what we shall be. But when it appears, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. There you have the baptism in the Spirit. When people almost jump out with joy that they have been loved, they have been chosen, they have been made new, and that this gift is not for them alone, but for others. And when we come to get the people to understand this, I think we will also get to understand that really it is for all and not only for members of charismatic groups. as the Pope told us. And then to get them to help our people understand the value of not only unity, but of diversity. How important it is for us not to be only one, but to be different from one another. Can you imagine what it is? If you all look like me, kawawa naman kayo. One day I went to Blumentritt. Pagdating ko doon, pinagkaguluhan ako ng mga bata. Sabi ko, ba't kayo nagkakagulo? Sabi nung isa sa akin, ay, akala namin si Yoyoy Villame. So, we should be happy with the faces that God has given to us. We should be happy that we are different. We should be happy that we are not all like like Bishop Ambo, Cardinal Ambo, like Cardinal Tagle. We should be happy that we are what we are, children of God. That is what should make us truly happy. And so happy, we want to share what has been given to us, to others. Yun po, pagka naipaliwanag natin sa mga tao yon, they will realize baptism in the Spirit can happen more than once in your life. More than once. Sometimes you have conversions experiences where suddenly before the Blessed Sacrament, you come to understand, oh Lord, you love me. Oh Lord, forgive me. I have not loved you enough. Oh Lord, I give myself to you. Use me, oh Lord, so that others may also come to love you. There you have baptism in the Spirit also. So, they need that. And then they need that we teach them how to relate to other members of other denominations. I heard recently in the recent evangelization conference in UST, Bishop Ambo was criticized in FB heavily. I was shown the criticisms when he said, there are Catholics who believe that only Catholics can go to heaven. Nako, he got a lot of flack for that, for saying the truth. No? But we must come to understand, there are more people going to heaven with us than you will ever expect. Sabi ko nga, pag nagtuturo ako sa mga El Shaddai, baka pagpasok ko sa langit, nasa reception line si Duterte. Sabi ko, huy, ba't nandito ka? And he will say to me, for the same reason that you are here, because of the mercy of God. That's why I am here. Not because I claim to be good, but because I realized while I was in Hague that, the Lord loves me even if I have done wrong. And He will welcome me still with open arms if I only accept Him. Yan po. So, even Protestants can go to heaven. They're our brothers, yes, and separated. And please, notice this. Ang sabi sa atin ng Second Vatican Council, iba na ang pag-intindi ngayon ng Christian unity. Dati, ang Christian unity, sabi natin sa mga hindi Katoliko, come home to us. Yun ang dati. Hanggang kay Pope Pius XII, come home to us. Ngayon, hindi na. Anong Christian unity ngayon? Ito, this is Christ in the middle. The separated brethren are here. We are here. And we approach Christ, asking for His mercy. And they approach Christ, asking for His mercy. When we both approach Christ, we shall approach one another. We shall become one. And when we have all been completely obedient to Christ, we will also be completely one. Yun ang Christian unity ngayon na ating hinahanap. Not magpakabuti kayo, lumapit na kayo sa amin. Hindi, magpakabuti tayo, lumapit na tayo kay Kristo. Sapagkat pag lumapit tayo kay Kristo, malalapit tayo sa isa't isa. And then, finally, the love for the poor. I'm very, very happy that that has been stressed and re-stressed by Pope Francis and even now by Pope Leo. I do not know whether you saw the book, No Salvation Outside the Poor, written by a South American theologians. No salvation outside the poor. If we are to be saved, we must receive these words of Christ. Welcome, because I was hungry, you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick and in prison, and you came to visit me. Come. And the other ones, depart from me, because I was hungry. You did not give me to eat. Thirsty, you did not give me to drink. I was sick and in prison. You did not visit me. Sometimes, it may not be easily believable, but I have met Catholics, really, who, nearing even the end of their lives, found it hard to welcome those who needed their forgiveness. No? To welcome them. Sometimes they're still healthy, well off, but they cannot understand why they still have to forgive. The ones who need forgiveness are some of the people who need our help most. And when we help them, we help ourselves. So, it is we who must lead them in this, both by word and by example. And when we lead them in this, then they will follow us. And then perhaps it will be true. We will no longer be the most religious country in Asia, and at the same time, the most corrupt and the most less attentive to the poor. I hope that we help them in this great change. So, thank you very much, and God bless you all.